Welcome to the second of your special KBB Review podcast episodes, direct from KBB Birmingham 2024. It's Monday, and it's been another really busy show day today. Lots of very interesting conversations on and off the record, some fantastic gossip, which I couldn't possibly repeat, and some genuinely honest assessments about the health of the market. More on all that in tomorrow or Wednesday's episodes, but today we've got a couple of very interesting interviews that I did on the hoof here at the NEC. First up, we're talking changes to the laws surrounding the recycling of appliances, what it means for suppliers, and what it means for retailers who sell them and take the old ones away. Very important subject that could directly affect you. So I'm talking with Anthony Sant, the Joint MD of Swift Electrical. Then we have a really interesting discussion with Walter Peteri, Quooker's global director and the son of founder Henri Peteri. Quooker is such an interesting story, but not just in the product, but also the marketing, and Walter has some very insightful views on innovation within the kitchen industry. Spoiler alert, he doesn't think there is any. Don't miss that one, it's so interesting. But now it's KBB Review Retail and Design Awards night, so I'm off to put on my suit and get ready. Tomorrow, you will all know who the winners are. See you then. Actually, we've talked about this before, but you're here really with a very specific message about the WE directive, which most people have heard of, and recycling, because that's your previous life before you came to Swift.
Absolutely.
The law is changing, as you've been predicting for many years. So fill us in on exactly what's happened and where we're up to.
Okay, so it's really interesting. So when we spoke, must have been a couple of years ago, we talked about the fact that there were going to be changes to the WE regulations. This thing called extended producer responsibility, which pretty much means that at some point in the future, government argue that the objective will be that a consumer can have a free collection from the home, and that doorstep collection will capture more waste electrical and electronic equipment. So it's been talked about since 2018 with the resources and waste strategy that government produced. Well, we are now at the point of consultation. So the government have gone out to the industry and said, we'd like to hear your opinions. They've done that. The questionnaires are out there and everybody needs to answer by the 7th of March. So pretty much this week, get your answers in and tell them. And I think that what's quite interesting about it is how they've positioned it. One of the questions is very much about the fact is that how people feel about the fact that retailers should be giving the consumer a free of charge collection of waste. But what's really interesting is if you read the consultation closely, what they're saying is that if you don't do it, then there will be a national collection network which is generated and put together by the producers, the manufacturers, to do the job. What's really interesting is the suggestion is that if retailers don't offer this collection service, then they will be made to help fund that national collection network. So I think there's some interesting points here that I think that we need to be aware of and need to understand what's happening and how this could affect all retailers.
So retailers are here this week. Give me an example of what that might actually mean for them. They've gone to Mrs. Smith's house, they've ripped the kitchen out because they're putting a new one in. What does that mean for them?
So I think, especially for the kitchen retail, I think this is really, really important. If you think about the dynamic of it, regularly you'll have a kitchen retailer which will deliver the cabinets and the appliances. Then the fitters will come out, they'll take the old kitchen out, they'll put the kitchen in the skip, they'll put the appliances by the skip, and then they'll continue the work in the house. The problem is that we all know, and studies have proved this, that those appliances that have been left by the skip are being stolen, being taken, and they're not going down responsible routes of recycling. So what government want to do now is basically make it a retailer responsibility to make sure that that product, that scrap, is not left by the skip. They take it back to a responsible recycler. So I think that this is where we need to start considering the operational challenges that are going to be needed. We're going to start thinking about the fact is that should we be delivering appliances when the old ones are ready to take out, rather than delivering the appliances and then thinking about ripping them out. And then you become a retailer in the very much way as the distressed purchase. People who sell appliances relating to a distressed purchase, the one's already broken, and therefore it's very easy for them to do a take-back service. And I think that
which they currently charge for something.
But that will stop.
Yeah.
Okay, now look, there's no saying that these proposals will go through. It is a consultation, but we only have to look at the whole of Europe. Extended producer responsibility has happened over there.
There's a direction of travel here, isn't there, with all things sustainability and recycling related.
Well, they've already done it with packaging.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, many retailers used to have a packaging obligation. That's now moved, that obligation that for the packaging has now moved to the brands. So the whole responsibility is with the brand for the packaging obligation. What's really significant is that extended producer responsibility has already happened for packaging. So that's happened already. already. So why wouldn't they do that for appliances? Don't get me wrong, it's not definite, but the direction of travel suggests it will happen.
But then you would think, though, that if you were a responsible retailer, this is a really good thing to talk about anyway. This is a really good service to offer your consumers anyway, isn't it?
Without question it is. I think the big problem is that dealing with waste electrical and electronic equipment costs money. And I think that the problem is that we've got to consider what that means. If you bring an old appliance back to your shop, where do you store it? How do you get looked after? There's talk in the consultation that the retailers will be entitled to a free of charge collection from the store. How often will this happen? There's lots of things we need to talk about. And I think that my stance on this is stop crossing our arms and stamping our feet and going, I'm not going to let it happen, okay, and I'm going to fight it like tooth and nail, in almost in the same way that people sometimes, basically, there's a new housing estate going to be built and everybody says, not on my doorstep, and guess what, the housing estate gets built in the end. Stop fighting it in that way, and then I think that we have to accept that this is the direction of travel, and then I think we should be then considering how we try and mitigate some of those costs. And I think it will be the way we change our operating, how we operate differently, but more importantly, should we be arguing that there should be some sort of compensation for bringing the product back? And again, it's not set in stone, and this is why people should have a voice.
Like returning your glass bottles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's the thing about it. And remember, the whole point about this philosophy is about polluter pays. If you put bad stuff into an item, you need to pay to take it back. And it won't just be appliances. It will be furniture, it will be beds. Okay.
Because we're thinking of recycling in this context of how you smash it up, taking a bit to recycle the parts. But of course, when someone puts a new kitchen in, that doesn't necessarily mean the stuff they're taking out is broken.
Absolutely not.
So it's as much about reuse and refurb as it is about recycling.
So it's a really interesting dynamic. Yeah. So we talk about the waste hierarchy. The first objective, is actually to stop people discarding in the first place. How do we make things last longer? You'll see responsible organisations putting 5-year warranties on their products and longer warranties. And if you think about going back to the resource and waste strategy, that is a big starting point, is how do we get people to keep the product longer? Stop the throwaway society. So the starting point is make things last longer, stop the discarding. The next part in the waste hierarchy is reuse. Well, we know that reuse doesn't happen for stuff that's being left at the council waste type, it's damaged, all the other bits and pieces. So in the example that you've just put, that basically the stuff's still working, the appliances are still working, absolutely it should be reused. But this is where it needs to be captured, tested properly under the regulations, and then used again. Yeah. Great thing. Only then should we think about recycling it after that.
But someone's got to pay for all that.
There's funding requirements to it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point about the WEEE regulations. Let's be really clear about it. Where I came from, when I used to work at AO, we had a very large recycling facility. That was paid for by the manufacturers that used it to recycle the WEEE. It is producer funding. When you say producer, read manufacturer. So it is funded by it. This stuff is complicated, and when we talk about smashing stuff up and recycling, we're not actually smashing it up to get to the expensive bits, the metals and stuff like that. We're smashing it up to get to the hazardous components, removing the refrigerants, the gases, the persistent organic pollutants that are in the plastics and stuff like that. So it's a great journey, and I think that we have to accept that this is the direction of travel of governments.
So 2 years' time, we're stood here again.
Yeah.
Where do you think we'll be then?
I think that the government will be deciding about producer responsibility. I think that we can kick the can down the road for as long as possible. It's going to happen at some point. Do I think it will happen in the next couple of years? Could do. I think 3 years possibly. I think this could be a 2026, 2027, and that's actually not that long away. It has to happen, unfortunately.
I think part of it is about how far or behind the consumer momentum it is. So when customers start, they get the new kitchen put in, and customers start going, what are you doing with that? You're putting that in a skip, surely you must be able to recycle that.
Absolutely, but there should be things like that.
There should be, and it's a very good story for retailers to tell.
Absolutely.
Anyway, if they can find that mechanism. But it's where the legislation is in front
and
of
I think the legislation will happen. I think the big thing, my big message to the kitchen retailers out there that sell appliances is the fact is that they need to have a voice. They need to think about the fact is that this might change the way they operate. And that may not be a bad thing because it might help the environment, but with anything, changing operation might cost a little bit more. And it's trying to work out how that cost gets recouped. And it has to be recouped in the most cost-effective way, because let's make no bones about it, whatever cost gets added, they all find their way back to the consumer. And it's about trying to find an inexpensive way of doing the job properly.
So you see these problems with the housing industry because the high interest rates, there's not much being built, and the consumer confidence is really low in all these countries. For example, Denmark's also another example where we see really that's difficult times. But of course, you should take into account that we had these fantastic Corona years where we grew with 40% per year. So it's more or less a compensation for these years. But I think this year will remain difficult.
It's interesting for you guys because you're still a relatively new category. So compared to BSH or somebody that's been making ovens for 100 years, you're still a relatively new category. So does that make a difference? Do you think that you still have market share to take? You still have market that doesn't know about you? Or
of course. That's funny that you ask, because in countries where you start, like for example, we started in Spain and Italy recently. It doesn't matter what the economy is doing, because you're so small. If the big wave is doing like this, it doesn't matter. But in the mature markets, and then the best example is of course the Netherlands, where we practically in every kitchen already. Then you are very dependent on what the market does. So for the small countries, it doesn't matter. And for where you have big penetration, and the UK is a little bit in between. So we still have a lot to gain in the UK in terms of penetration, that the amounts of cookers per kitchen can still increase. But we are also big here, so if the economy is hit, we are also hit.
But what I find so interesting about it is you've effectively invented that market from scratch.
Yeah,
and that's what makes it so interesting. You're always competing with yourself up to a certain point.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that makes it also difficult. You have to build the whole market on your own, and I always say that we still don't have serious competition. If you look at the whole Northwestern Europe, there's no party like us who's completely focused on this, who's healthy. Last year we still grew, so our turnover last year still grew, and I think that's a fantastic achievement if you compare that to other companies. And that's because we are so focused that we only do this.
Because you've effectively invented this category for yourselves, you've almost been able to write the rules of it for yourself. So things like selling it online, selling it direct to consumer, selling it through DIY as well as independent retail. These are all classic arguments that retailers, people walk around the show, hate people for. But because you have no legacy of pricing, and you've been able to hit every channel with nobody complaining.
But the most important thing in that respect is that you have to be honest, and that you have to stand for what you say. We never want to compete with the kitchen shop. If people are going to buy a cooker in a kitchen shop, we will never deliver this cooker because we not want to. But there is a market of people with existing kitchens where also kitchen shop is not really happy to serve these clients, and then it's quite logical to go direct in these cases. And on the other hand, in the whole society, there's trends and everybody's struggling with this issue. There's trend that manufacturers and go direct.
I think there's two things about Quooker that I always admire, genuinely. One is it's a great product, obviously, but I think as a brand marketing unit, it's done a phenomenal job. It's almost made, in quite a short space of time really, made the word synonymous with the product. In other words, people are looking for, have you got one of those Quooker taps? The ethos of the brand, what the brand means, what does it mean to you? If someone says, what is Quooker?
If you look internally, we have 4 core values, and that's independent, original, responsible, and the last one is Dutch word vastberaden, and it's persistent. I'm glad that you see that it has been a long way, and that you admire what we did, because a lot of people forget these first 15 years. To go back, what I think is important is original. We never look at other people, we never look at other brands, so we do it completely our own way. That is really important. That's already started with my father, with the idea of oleo. That's so original, and then the persistency, and then of course that you are responsible, sustainable. That's important. And what I said, this honesty. So we don't like crap. We don't like stories.
But I've seen lots of fantastic product fall over because they haven't got the marketing or the brand right.
No.
I've seen lots of very mediocre products do very well because they get the brand and the marketing right. So it's a combination. It's a good idea. You have to then be able to tell that.
I fully agree with you. On one hand, we are a technical company, and on the other hand, we are a marketing company. That combination is very special because you need both of them.
One of the temptations which I've seen happen a lot is that you establish a very strong brand doing the thing, the idea. And then you think, well, we need to grow though, don't we? So let's put that brand on that. It must be very tempting, and you must get lots of offers from people to do that.
But I'm not a fan of putting your brand on jugs. Or our strengths always have has been also focus. Of course, I've been approached with all kinds of ideas. And also at the beginning, I was approached to go to all kinds of countries. And I always said, I'm going only to the next country if I want to go to the next country. And not because somebody phones me from Turkey or whatever and say, okay, I want to sell you. And people were insulted in the beginning. And they thought that I would be very happy because they called me and that they wanted to try to sell. I said, I'm not interested. And it really is very strange. So I also had this idea. I want to go to the next country, not before the country before is running more or less a little bit. That you see that it's going to happen. And not to start in 10 countries at the same time. That could also be the strategy. But we've been always very focused in terms of the product, in terms of the market, and also in terms of the people, not hiring too many people, no external money, all these kind of...
Well, it works.
It works, yeah. But it takes longer. That'd be the flip side. So we've been very patient. I don't care. If we go to a new country, I reckon that we make 5-year losses. That's why I know it's going to happen. If we start now in France, 5-year losses. And I don't care.
Do you think, as an industry, because this whole thing started because your dad's an inventor, you know, he's an engineer, he made the thing.
Yeah.
And it was something that's genuinely new.
Yeah.
And do you think this is an industry that welcomes innovation or new ideas?
Totally not, of course. Totally not. It's the most conservative industry in the world, probably. Nobody wants new products. I come from the time that nobody wanted a Quooker. That was completely, only people looked at the disadvantages. Well, it will cost a lot of energy and it's always dangerous. Oh, it's so dangerous that you try to sell this. It's a crime. The people shouted at us at fairs. But it's a very conservative industry. But it's also a little bit human nature that you don't want new things, and then later on, but you practically see not many new developments in the kitchen industry.